So here we have Thetis' lament for her son Achilles.
Yes.
And, we're just really getting emphasis of these ideas about sorrow and grief in relation to Achilles. And
Yes.
we're also getting, again, that we've seen in another conversation, in another passage, this idea of Achilles as a shoot.
As a shoot, as a seedling, as a tender plant that is about to reach its prime, or maybe is reaching its prime and then is to be cut down in its prime.
And so previously that was sort of eroticized because
Yes.
we were looking at a wedding song, and now here we're singing a lament.
And so here it's not eroticized so much, although there's still a residue of that, but it's certainly aestheticized.
Mm-hmm.
And not only is it aestheticized, but the grief takes the form of a song. As we noted before, singing a lament is both crying and singing at the same time. And what these words are meant to convey is not just a quoting of what Thetis says about Achilles. It's actually a reenactment of a re-performance of a lament which would in real life be sung by lamenting women. Mm-hmm. And you ask yourself, well, wait a minute, Achilles hasn't even died yet. Well, he hasn't died, but he is behaving like a dead person. He is lying prone on the beach, and for that matter, Thetis is cradling his head from behind him, which is exactly how a chief lamenting woman would be lamenting the loss of, let's say, a dear son in quote-unquote real life. So it is a stylized lament. It's a preview of the lament that Thetis would be expected to sing for Achilles when he dies. Well, who has died? It's Patroklos. And of course, the death of Patroklos is a vicarious death for Achilles himself. So you could say that notionally he is dead. He's certainly dead to his happier self, the self that was not yet the man of constant sorrow, but now he is the man of constant sorrow, and he will have sorrow forever. And that's why this word, he will have sorrow, the original Greek has the verb Akhnutai at line 62, is so important in this passage.
And then you have Penthos in line 64.
And Penthos, exactly, Lenny. Penthos signals that it's not just sorrow or grief, it's the sorrow or grief that is sung in lament.
Another aspect of the lament context is the fact that she brings with her the other Nereids, that it's a choral performance.
It's a choral performance, and she is, shall we say, at this moment, the soloist.
Yes.
In choral performance, people can take turns in being the soloist and being the lead singer. And at that point, the emotions of the lead singer predominate over the emotions of the other participants. But it is a group activity, even when you hear the solo part.
Yeah. Or the group is its call and response too. It's
and the group, the way the group responds.
stenakhonto, they grieved in response.
And hold on, we're going to get to precisely.
Sorry.
No. It's okay to jump the gun, but we're going to see a passage where you actually have that expression. And why don't we just tag it, epi stenakhonto, that is to say, mourn in response.
Yeah, exactly.
So that'll be a placeholder for us when we get to that passage. Absolutely.
So that idea of going back and forth, we've seen that maybe about epic or lyric, right? When we saw the performance between Patroklos and Achilles.
Yes, you could say that even in epic, which is not choral, which is not a group performance in the sense that you have a soloist and then the soloist role changes from one person to the next, but here at least you have a relay kind of group situation, so it's still a group situation. And that just shows us how important it is not to think of song culture as performer on one side and audience on the other side, where the audience is sitting like this. No. Everybody is part of the group, which is performance. Some people at any given moment may be more active, others may be more passive.
And what about our response to this kind of grief when we hear a lament being performed within the epic. What does that produce for us?
Well, imagine if you're, let's say, a 7-year-old and you hear this for the first time in a public setting. It gives you one kind of impression, but then when your grandfather dies, or when your older brother dies in war, and you hear it again, it gives you yet another kind of impression. And all these impressions or imprintings shape your emotional life. A song culture is a culture where your own personal experiences fuse with the larger-than-life experiences of these larger-than-life people who populate the Homeric poetic tradition, the lyric tradition of Sappho, and so on.
Another aspect of it that you see it so clearly in this text is that there's the sorrow for what's happened to the person who's about to die, or whose death is kind of being enacted, and also what it feels like for the person who's lost that person, right? There's this emphasis on both, what it feels like to be Thetis and be unable to help her amazing self.
That helplessness in the face of death is that piercing kind of sorrow that, in the case of men, leads so easily to red-hot anger from one moment to the next.